Welcome, everybody. This is a great day. My name's George. I'm with the Epiphan team, and today we get to talk about new features for our flagship product line, Pearl. So for those of you who are new to Epiphan and maybe you don't know what we do, you're looking at a little bit of what we do right now with this Pearl Mini on this desk, which is helping Dan and I capture, enhance, stream, and record this broadcast today. So we try to make everything we do to make lives easier for people to scale video and do it really more efficiently. And that's a big theme of what we're going to be talking about today. And Dan, you're looking pretty relaxed here.
I'm feeling relaxed because now Epiphan is capable of having a fully automated video workflow. And the big feature actually that we're revealing today that's a new feature on Pearl is scheduling. And that enables you to pre-schedule all of your streams and all of your records. And when you pair that with some of our existing automation features like configuration presets and automatic file upload, the result is a fully automatic workflow that's very efficient, gives you peace of mind, and really helps you when you're working at scale.
No, it's really cool. Like we're doing it today, and we're going to show you all of the behind the scenes of how this comes together. Dan prepared a great video for us to just go through each aspect of these automated tools. And then we have some killer guests lined up. So we have Jeremy joining us from Amman, Jordan, who's going to talk about his automated podcasts. This is a completely automated studio environment, and it's based entirely around Epiphan architecture. And then we have John Porterfield joining us, who's going to talk about what this means for that end user, the person who's trying to create content in a space where they don't want to deal with that technology. John is a master at making sure that everybody feels comfortable making video. And again, he's also using Epiphan's automation tools. And so we'll have them join us. And we're also going to invite you to join us as a live caller if you wish. And you can be on the show today. You can be asking questions. So if you're not up for that, too, put your questions in the chat and we'll get to all of them today. So we probably got about 15 minutes of meat of this act, and then we're going to turn it over to a Q&A and go as long as we want. But let's get it started by rolling the video that shows you exactly what Epiphan's automated features really are.
Here's 3 tips to automate your video workflow with Epiphan. Configuration presets. Setting up your Pearl device is faster than ever. With just a few clicks, you can select presets for different recording and streaming scenarios. For example, I can quickly switch between this podcast setup, with layouts, branding, and streaming destinations, to this company town hall setup, with media playback, ISO recordings, and remote participants. With config presets, you can copy settings from one Pearl across your entire fleet for really fast deployment and scalability. Scheduling. Whether you're planning to record or stream video, scheduling your Pearls is a powerful automation tool. Define what needs to be recorded or streamed, and when. Then, let Pearl do the rest. You can set start-stop times, create repeating events, and manage a calendar for all your devices. Scheduling will give you peace of mind that you'll never miss a record or stream, making your video workflow worry-free. Automatic file upload. When you're recording lots of video, managing your content at scale can be a challenge. Automatic file upload simplifies this process by automatically transferring your files to a chosen destination, whether that's a local server, cloud destination, or USB stick. Seamless integration with your storage destinations means you can focus more on quality video and less on file management.
Fantastic. It's so nice seeing all those features laid out for us as cleanly as Dan did there. And I'm very excited about it. I'm excited to hear about what you might be doing with scheduling or some of the other automation features. So be sure to put your comments in the chat and let's see if we can get a bit of a conversation going around this. We are going to bring in a guest in a minute here who is kind of a master of automation. Before all of these features existed, Jeremy Prudhomme has been making automated podcast studios, and he's someone who I look to as a subject matter expert when it comes to making his life easier for his end users. So let's roll a little clip so you can understand a little bit about what his business is. This is a commercial that he put together last year around what his studio offering is. So let's take a look.
All right, welcome to the podcast.
So, you're a storyteller, a content creator, or a business owner, but you don't have the space, the equipment, or the technical knowledge to share your voice. Well, if you're in the Ottawa-Gatineau region, you're in luck. G-Man Go is your local state-of-the-art, fully automated professional video podcast studio. With a push of a single button, 3 cameras will simultaneously record your session, and away you go. When you're done, your files will automatically be exported and delivered, ready for you to download and edit your footage. No editing skills? No worries. Our team can edit your video podcast and deliver your final product quickly. Visit our website and book your spot today.
It's a very cool studio you've built there, Jeremy. I've seen it with my own eyes. I know I get really excited every time I talk about it, but what are your customers, why are they coming to you for this studio? What do they get excited about?
Yeah, I think it's the ease of use, right? So they walk in, they sit down, they press one single button, and they don't need any technical knowledge at all. And they always get a pro quality podcast. The quality never change. So it's really easy, user-friendly, and efficient.
Nice. So I know you're using our configuration presets already. You're using our file management automation for your post side, because I know that's a big part of your business is doing the post on it. What does the ability to schedule the recording and streaming aspect in your studio, what does that do for you?
Yeah, that's going to be pretty cool because it means even more efficiency, more peace of mind, right? My goal is really to automate everything on the production checklist. And every bit that I can automate and save time and being more reliable for the client, it's really, really good for me and for the clients. And so scheduling, what scheduling is going to bring to the table is that I'll be able to schedule and make sure that my clients don't even need to touch any piece of hardware, right? Because right now they're only pressing one button, but having the schedule come in is going to make it even easier. And just a quick story, I did have a client that, I think he might have double pressed the button a little bit quick or something like that, or he forgot to press it and they lost, an hour and a half of content. And they were like, oh yeah, we didn't record. So
yeah,
again,
it seems like it doesn't matter how simple you make a space like that. Like if you leave any room for error, they're going to find it. And so having buttons, we all like to push buttons, right? So
yeah,
the blessing and a curse. So I can see how scheduling kind of makes that. It kind of takes your spaces from being self-serve to automated, right?
exactly. Yeah. It's going to make it really easy for the clients to come in, sit down and start talking.
Yeah, you also talked about checklist. You said that word, and that's a word that keeps been rattling around my brain since we've been talking about this feature. Is when I think about these events, like Dan and I this morning, we had a checklist. We had 30 things we needed to do, and some of them are technical related, but quite a lot of them are content related or scheduling related. And I know if I can remove 1 or 2 or 3 of those checkpoints from that list, I'm much happier, right? It's just 3 things that I don't have to worry about. And I'm sure it's the same with your studio spaces, that you're just trying to eliminate those things that you have to remember, right?
Exactly, 100%. Like sometimes it's the little things, right, that you want to eliminate, and the client is happier and it's easier for them, even for live streaming, right, to program it. It's going to be just an hassle-free. And on that note, I actually live outside the country of where my studio is. My studio is in Canada. I'm in Jordan right now. And so to program stuff while I'm sleeping, it makes it even easier for me, right?
You're programming in your sleep. I admire that. That's amazing. I told everybody you were a master. So, and then where does Epiphan fit into all of this? Like we saw in your clip, some shots of the Pearl system. So how does Epiphan facilitate your business just in a general sense outside of the specific automation stuff?
Yeah, I mean, Epiphan definitely unlocks a lot of possibilities. It makes it reliable and it makes it simple. And at the end of the day, like I said, I'm overseas, so like to be able to just log into my Epiphan and fix something from here is really simple, and that's kind of what it does, right? So it's a really good it's a really big game changer for me.
Nice. Well, I'm super impressed with what you're able to do. I can't believe effectively you're running these video businesses from another country. And it's always nice to see how our products can be part of those stories. So thanks so much for joining us here today. We're actually going to pivot now and bring in our next guest. We're going to keep this moving. And before we do that, just a reminder, ask those questions in the chat on Crowdcast, please. We'd love to hear from you. If you have questions for Jeremy and stuff, we could probably pull him back in the Q&A as well. So we'll get to all of that in just a few more minutes. But we have another guest joining us, John Porterfield, who is another friend of Epiphan. He's been on our events before. And the reason we keep bringing John back is because he has such great insights into what his end customers are looking for from an ease of use perspective, kind of similar to what Jeremy is trying to do. Jeremy has self-serve customers, whereas John's customers, he's more solutioning for them. He's trying to give them solutions that they can work with that don't require a tremendous amount of oversight and technical knowledge to be able to operate, and especially in the house of worship area. So John, thanks for joining us today.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me. Pleasure to be here with you, George.
Yeah. So what does this world of automation unlock for you? I mean, you're doing a lot of this work already, and now you're basically got a few more tools in your toolkit with scheduling and file management and config presets. So what does that unlock for you?
So I think it kind of unlocks, in particular, I think it kind of look at the house of worship space and churches and organizations that are looking for ways to minimize the complexity of sorts. It really kind of makes the workflow more efficient. So in terms of the scheduling feature, having the ability to pre-plan your activities through the new feature set, and just in using it, right, scheduling streams when they start, when they end, the recording feature, right? Those are elements that are really key, kind of going back to what you said about the checklist, right? Identifying where we need to make sure that we're having those things planned in advance. So I think it's going to help provide efficiency, and also with some of the people that are looking to create better efficiencies with their AV workflow, where, especially with volunteers at churches, where there's sometimes some complexity, for the volunteer that's serving in a church production, they don't do this every day, right? In terms of those of us that are in front of working with streaming productions or broadcast and video. So, giving them the tools in the tool bag to help them, I think is really key to help them and their teams that are working together to produce an event that they're pulling together.
Can you tell us a little bit more about some maybe specific customers you have, just to make it more relatable to people? Like who are these people exactly? Like I think we have some images and photography around.
Absolutely. So one of the clients is down in Montgomery, Alabama, actually, Jesus City Church, and we have a nano that's there. And again, this is like an example I'm kind of referring to in terms of a volunteer team that handles the church production. I'm helping manage it remotely, and creating better efficiency in their workflow. They have a pretty decent studio set up in terms of their church production, where they're doing live streams once a week or more. Then posting that up on YouTube and other types of platforms and make those available. And so it's key to create efficiency for their team, right? And this is, again, going back to that feature set of the automation, like the stream starting, right, and recordings and capturing that content to post and edit after the church service concludes. So, there's Montgomery and Alabama, and we're at Jesus City Church. And then as well as in Anaheim, another client is actually implemented a nano, and in their environment, again, they're in the middle of a building project, but we're looking at the areas of how to improve the efficiency of the workflow for automation, not only in terms of the live webcast, but also overflow rooms or offsite locations where you want to start a stream to send to another location. That could be another Epiphan nano acting as a decoder, receiving that using a protocol like SRT or something like that in that place. Again, looking at those areas. And so it's been really exciting to kind of see what we can do both on-site as well as off-site.
On-site and off-site. That's a nice way to look at it. And I guess you're always thinking in that lens, right? Because you have to be a consultant with these people, and you have to dial in and help them solve those problems. And I'm guessing half the time you're remote, right?
Yeah, a good portion of where, obviously the past few years has been an indicator. A lot of us that are doing remote production, that work and working with clients. I mean, consulting and advising them is providing the right solution in place to help architect what will be a setup that will help service their needs for success, as well as for where I'm coming in and being able to help them remotely manage. And with the Nano, through Epiphan Edge and other parts of the process of the workflow, it gives me the ability to have insight into their environment, right? Which is key, because I'm the subject matter expert when it comes in behind the scenes, like with Jeremy, where he's doing it, or anybody here that's involved in this space. We're kind of making sure everything's running correctly and giving them giving the volunteer team and the local production team for the church confidence, right? Which is really key to their success, and knowing that, hey, I'm there along with them as kind of a co-pilot.
Yeah. So we've talked a little bit about like what your customers are trying to achieve. And obviously these automations let them do a little bit more, but what does it mean for your business to have automation tools versus without having them? Like, does it give you more time? Does it give you peace of mind? Like, maybe just explain what it means for you as a service provider.
Yeah, I think from a managed production service, right, in terms of managing the live streaming production or capture or whatever we might be working with, from my perspective, I think it's the putting more tools in the tool bag, so to speak, to leverage with support the customer, right? To ensure, really, at the end of the day, we're all trying to help the client or the customer in their project achieve a certain level of success. So I think there is a little bit of a peace of mind. I mean, we're all professionals, and we do things every day, but there's times where, going back to the automation component, did I start the stream, right? There's been times, I know, when I started webcast a decade ago and got into church production, I forgot to start the record feature, right?
Oh yeah, it happened to us about a month ago. And I mean, we do this all the time, just like you, right?
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter if you're good at it. It's not a question of skill or
Right.
a good list. You're going to forget something on that list. Like,
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so I think that checklist item, going back to it, is really key, right? This really helps kind of give me another tool in the tool bag, going back to that point of being able to, like, I can schedule in advance, I can make sure things are going, the recording is started, right? There's preset options, there's a lot of different areas that we can kind of go into. So I think there's a peace of mind and also reliability in terms of where I can focus my attention on the customer, right? And I can pay attention to something else that might be more critical, knowing those things of those processes have already started. To me, from an automation as well as just an overall workflow, is really valuable.
Yeah. Okay, so we're going to transition a little bit, John, and I'm hoping you're going to stay with us for a bit, because we're going to move into the Q&A section. But before I do that, I've been told our crowdcast stream, we're having some issues on the crowdcast side. So hopefully that's not causing this to be a miserable broadcast. But we'd love for you to stick around and ask those questions. And we're still going to try and pull people into the show. In fact, we already have one guest lined up who's going to join us here in a minute. But the final details on the scheduling release, for those of you who are waiting for this, it's going to come out next week. So it'll come out as a free firmware update for your Pearl system, and you'll need a premium Epiphan Edge account to manage the scheduler. So you'll see the schedule on your device and you'll see it in the cloud, but that Epiphan Edge account really helps drive that scheduling there. So take a look for that. If you're a Pearl customer, you'll get an email in a couple of days or in about a week around this, and just contact us and we'll get you everything you need on that front. So if you want to join us on Zoom, please look at the link at the top here. It's going to say epiphan.com/live. And when you click on that, it'll take you into a green room where you'll meet with one of our producers who will help you get set up so that you can come in and join here and sit alongside John and I and shoot the breeze about how you might be using scheduling or whatever it is you want to talk about. So let's turn it back. I'm just going to nod to my producer here and say, like, what's up next? Like, I think we have a caller queued up here. Am I right? So we have Erich joining us. And I know Erich. Like, Erich is a friend of the family here at Epiphan. So welcome, Erich. Thanks for taking a few minutes for us today.
Well, thank you, George. Thanks for being here.
Yeah. So you work with a company called ETS, and I've seen you're at one end of the spectrum. We've been talking about, churches who are, and oftentimes a little bit smaller, right? They're doing one production in one facility. ETS, you're doing big events. I've seen the scale of the number of pearls that you have in your rack and stuff. So maybe you can just give us a little overview of what it is you do and what ETS does.
Sure. At ETS, we primarily handle conferences and corporate meetings. shows like Twitch, GDC, Black Hat, when we're stacked 3 and 4 of these deep every time, a couple times a year, 3, 4 times a year. And each show has different requirements all across the board. So all this adds up really quick. For a show like Twitch, it's typically like 1 million ISO feeds with a really quick turnaround time that has to go to cloud storage. So we use them in that particular way. Medical meeting, we can have 10 or more concurrent rooms going to various different forms of capture, all on only a local network with no internet access. And then we might have a corporate meeting that requires pure edge management and has to, the files have to be uploaded immediately as soon as you hit stop and be erased on the device themselves. Or even you might have that wacky association that just has no money, but they have a crazy fast turnaround time. So you set up an extra channel on your Pearl 2 with layouts, and you punch live to tape and hope for the best and record the ISOs, So all without using vMix, by the way, no vMix involved. So you just never know what's going to come up. We have tons of different stuff happening to us, and the Pearls are really flexible, and that flexibility has really helped us just stay on top of things.
And the time-sensitive nature of what you do always blows my mind. The fact that you have to, you kind of have to do all your work in advance, because during the day of the event, I imagine your brain is just mush. You're just going through the motions of making sure you've done all your work ahead, right? It's kind of like an athlete. You do all your training and then you just show up and turn your brain off and run, right?
Pretty much, yeah. The plan is things are going to change, basically. You just have to be ready for it. It's not when, it's, or if, it's when. It's just going to change. And the Pearl is really flexible. So that lets us just keep whack-a-moling, if you will. That's really all we do, especially on show site.
Well,
but yeah, a lot of it's done on head side.
We always think we're designed around versatility, so that no matter what they throw at you, you can kind of figure that out. But what do these automation tools do for you? These new scheduling presets, and I know you're already using presets and probably the file management as well, but scheduling.
Yeah, we use quite a bit of the file management and the presets. It really allows us automation for the in general lets us work smarter than harder, and the being able to automate the Pearl's flexibility is a huge part of our product and our workflow. Like for keynote sessions, the craziness happens always at the last second. So being able to run around and not have to worry about the records triggering at the right second when you have that last second fire drill is a real good safety net. I can't emphasize that enough. It's everything happens at the last second. So not having to worry about the records rolling while you're handling that guy that's just getting ready to go on is a big deal. Same thing goes for medical meetings. Lots of things happen at the same time, and you're always looking for ways to do more with less and work smarter than harder. And the automation in the Pearl really allows us to keep doing that. Work smarter and not harder.
Awesome. Well, thank you. You always inspire us, the way you take our products. We build them, we put them into the world, and it's very inspirational just to see how you and how John and Jeremy, you're all doing such different things, but you're really using the same fundamental hardware to do these incredible things. So thanks for taking a couple of minutes for us today. I'm told we have another caller lined up, so we'll probably get that person. Oh, okay. We just have word there isn't another caller, but we do have a couple of questions coming in. And if you have questions, please put them in the crowdcast and we'll answer them here on the or on YouTube. We're streaming to YouTube and crowdcast today. And in fact, that brings us to the very first question, which is somebody asking about how many streams can Pearl send simultaneously? Well, when we do these shows, we'll sometimes stream to 4 different social networks at the same time. And depending which Pearl model you have, you can do 6 streams, you can do 8 streams if you wish. And so it's usually not an issue on that front. Knock yourself out. Multi-streaming and simulcasting is a pretty awesome thing to do and get more of a reach out of an event like this, especially if you can find different audiences on different events. So anyway, yeah.
All right. Thank you all.
Yeah. Thanks, Eric, for joining us today. Yeah. We'll see you around. Yeah. So I have another question about scheduling, and it is about, can scheduling tie into Outlook, Google, or other calendars? And the answer is not yet, but we're looking into that. And I know personally, that would be pretty valuable, but I can also tell you the actual scheduling UI within Epiphan Edge is really nice. It's some of the nicest work I think we've done as a development team. So I think you'll find it's quite accommodating there. And we'll keep an eye out for the Outlook and Google integrations coming later in the year.
Absolutely. I think actually the scheduling feature is actually pretty easy to use in terms of Edge, just in terms of my own testing and everything else. It's been pretty straightforward. So I think that workflow keeps it pretty clean.
Yeah, you've been using it for the last couple of days, right, John?
Yeah, I've been using it on several different activities just to kind of leverage that. Doing multi-streaming, we talked about going to multiple destinations. Absolutely, right? You can do all of that within the Edge and scheduling tool and get that. And so once that is established and with the Pearl units, so I've been very impressed with that.
A few more questions here around scheduling, and the first one is: can the new scheduling system use multiple pearls with the scheduling? And yeah, you can set up an event. So I can say, tomorrow at 2:00, I want my pearl in the lounge and my pearl in the conference room all to start at the same time. You can select your pearls or just the specific channels within those pearls to operate. So again, it's like everything we do, it's super flexible. So you can have one event triggering multiple devices or multiple channels. And then we have another question about the remote configurations. John, do you use the remote configuration presets?
I'm working on some of those right now to start using some of the presets to implement for certain processes or processes in certain workflows. So absolutely, those presets are nice. Just even recording file upload. File upload is a big one right now in terms of people asking, once the event has concluded, automatically upload that file and get that going. And so I think that's another part of those presets I've been evaluating, just see how we can implement it, right? It's going back to that point you made, George, earlier about how do we improve the success factor of, like Eric was bringing up, a lot of times we're doing a lot of things, right? And if you have an event in production, those presets are really helpful if you can automate that process, how those pre-configured, ready to go is part of the workflow setup.
Yeah. So speaking of config presets and scheduling, they can both be leveraged I'm answering some questions here around the offline usage of those features. So with config presets, you can load them on and off by a USB stick. So if you have devices that are completely offline, you have your config preset on a USB, you can plug it right in and do it right from the front screen of the device. So it's very offline friendly for the config presets. And for the scheduling workflow, you can connect your device to the internet so that it can pull the schedule, and then you can unplug it and you can take that pearl anywhere you want to go, and it'll still respect that schedule. You can't update that schedule. It's basically set in stone at that point because all the editing happens in Epiphan Edge, but offline, you can still operate your pearls off schedule. We have another guest coming up here, which is great. But before we do that, we have one more question, which is somebody asking about auto upload of files to major cloud storage platforms. So we saw in Dan's demo how we have file management and automatic file upload. So that basically means after today's event here, Dan will have pushed record on everything, and he will also have said, as soon as it's done recording, push those files to where I want them to go. And that can be a major cloud storage network. It can be a watch folder for Google Drive or anything else. It can be FTP. There's quite a lot of flexibility on how you want to handle those files. So I think any file management workflow you can think of, we're going to be able to solve it. Someone's going to call me out on that and tell me when we can solve it, but I'm pretty sure we can solve just about any one of them. So we have a new guest coming in here now. I'm told. Okay, we're just waiting on our producer behind the scenes. So what happens is these guests join another Zoom call, and then we tell them the ropes on, how's your camera, how's your audio, and then we pull them in and add them to the show. John, I think you've probably been a live caller on some of our shows in the past.
I have, yeah. Usually you guys get me ready to go, and I'm trying to make sure I'm ready to go, right? Which is kind of like getting my setup going through an iPhone and a decent microphone, and just making sure that you guys can hear me and I can hear you, right?
Yeah,
and I think that's.
It's a fun motion. This whole live caller thing has made our events a lot more dynamic, I've got to say, because it's a bit of a roulette kind of situation where you never quite know who's going to step through that door, but it makes my life very interesting. So I'm happy with it.
Yeah, absolutely.
We have another question about scheduling. If you schedule multiple events, I'm just reading them off the chat here. If you schedule multiple events, how easy is it to adjust the settings for all of them at a later time? So that's a good question. I don't remember if I've actually edited an event. I'm going to ask my colleagues to put an answer for me in the chat. I'm pretty sure you can just go in and edit those events.
You can. Yeah, you could. I edited. I did a couple things in some of the kind of like preliminary run through on some of those. You can go and edit the event, and so you can make some modifications, I believe, on some of that. I'll let somebody can correct me if I'm wrong. As well as when I was doing the live event, let's say the event is going longer, you can add another 5 minutes. So that way it doesn't stop, right? You're monitoring things kind of like that Cloud Studio or the node units of the nanos or pearls that you're using. That was really super helpful to go in and just make some quick modifications.
Cool. I'm glad you put it through its paces. We have another guest joining us. So we have Steve joining us. And Steve's calling in on a Zoom call. Hey, Steve, welcome to the show.
Hey, George, Steve VonderHaar with Intelligent Research here. How you doing?
I'm great. I always like talking to you. You talk to so many people who are really smart in this industry, so you usually ask good questions. So what have you got lined up for us today?
Well, I'm just interested in you talking a little bit about use case categories that open up for you now as a result of the expansion of the scheduling capabilities. It would seem like the Perl now becomes a viable alternative, for example, for EDU lecture capture and like. You have a lecture at 10 a.m. every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, and you capture that automatically, for instance. Is that a market you're targeting, or what's the low-hanging fruit for you with the scheduling application?
So, well, we've been in the EDU space for a long time, and we've learned a lot from our EDU customers who are using other tools like Panopto and Kaltura, which use a scheduling service. But we see a lot of customers who maybe they don't have a CMS like Panopto. And the reason might be cost, because it's an expensive, software package. And maybe they have 10 Perls and they have 10 rooms. And for them, I think this is a really sweet spot for them, because they don't need like quite a cumbersome as a software as something like Panopto and Kaltura. They just need to be able to do scheduling. And I think that unlocks a lot for those, medium-sized institutions who don't need 200 room scheduling. They need maybe 10. So that's kind of where I'm assuming we're going to hear that, and we're going to find out in 2 weeks once this is we get feedback from those end customers how they're actually using it. But also in spaces like government, in churches, in places where they're doing video on a daily basis, but they don't really want to have to hire someone to sit there and babysit that video. And not to denigrate the babysitters or the people who are doing that kind of work, but it can be done automatically. So why wouldn't you want to have just it all completely automated? So that's where my head's been going with this in terms of the use cases.
Well, congratulations on the rollout here, and look forward to tracking your progress on it.
Awesome. Thanks for calling in, Steve. Right now, John, you're joining via Zoom.
I am. Yep.
Yeah. I'm on Zoom as well here, even though it's a nice studio setup. We're pushing it all through Zoom, and then we're using Epiphan Connect to extract that Zoom ISO, so we can extract my signal, we can pull John's signal, and then we're producing all of this on a Perl system. So Dan has a Perl 2 running where he's pushing all of this content in it, and of course he's using some scheduling to make sure that we don't miss any of the recordings and that the stream goes out on time and all of those wonderful things. So automation is alive and well, and we're pretty happy to be using it here. So we have one more question about scheduling here. Thanks for the moderators putting this into the chat. How easy, if you schedule multiple events, how easy is it to adjust the settings for all the metadata time? So I thought we kind of answered that already, but yeah, you can edit the schedules post-event. Like if you put an event in to be scheduled, you can edit it later. And you can do reoccurring scheduling as well and edit that schedule too.
Yeah, so I think that's a big one on that one. And I think the other thing on the scheduling thing, going back to the point your other caller had as well, is the other thing to remember is that a lot of times, if you're trying to start something and you need to modify the schedule, you can totally do that. I think that's another interesting part of that process is that if you do have something like streams where I had a team starting early in the morning and we want to make sure they're getting the feeds early, you can make sure those are ready to go and do that as well. And so, you kind of have this, if you think about it, I think, George, going back to your point, is that, we're creating this centralized kind of monitoring operations model from a production perspective. And I think that's, to me, is really exciting to see kind of where you guys are heading with this setup.
Yeah, I'm looking at one more question here, John. And it's someone asking about the latency for the remote preset transition. So the way the remote configuration presets work, you can apply one and have a whole set of layouts and everything around your Perl set up for one thing. Let's say I want to do a town hall meeting in the morning, and then I want to switch it around and do a podcast setup, and I have different layouts, different backgrounds, and different graphics and everything like that. You can apply that preset, and it takes maybe, in my experience, about 10 seconds for it to load. And so I think that answers your question for that person who put that in the chat. And if I don't see any other questions here, I'm just going to check with my producers. Are we good to go here, or do we have more questions coming in? So I'm told there's a lot of other questions coming in on YouTube, but our moderators are in there answering those, so we won't go over them here on the camera. So let me express a huge thank you to everybody who joined us today. John, thanks so much for being here and helping out with the Q&A.
Absolutely.
We had Jeremy joining us about his automated studios. We had the nice callers. We had Eric talking about his huge setups with Perl. So thanks, everybody. Stay tuned. A week from now, you'll see scheduling released to the world, and let us know how it works for you. And thanks so much for joining us today.